What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are actually going to wrap up our coverage over X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. Now, remember, this is technically a sequel to Inferno. And what I mean by that is, when it came to Inferno, it was Jonathan Hickman saying goodbye to the X-Men. He came in 2018, did his stuff on the X-Men, and left with Inferno in 2021. Now, after that, a lot of fans had questions for Marvel. What comes next with the X-Men? And so they gave us X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. And this right here was a way to tell us, here comes what's next with the X-Men, but also on top of that, we are going to technically wrap up Moira McTaggart's storyline, but at the same time use her storyline to begin a new storyline down the road. And so it was two separate titles, X Lives and X Deaths, but it came together and tell one overarching storyline. Now, when it came to X Lives, it was Wolverine technically going back in time and having to relive different moments of his life, but as a way to protect Charles Xavier, because Omega Red was actually trying to kill off Charles Xavier in the past so that he would not be in the present day. Now, on top of that, though, when it came to X Deaths of Wolverine, that was more of Moira McTaggart's storyline. That was Marvel saying, let's wrap everything up for her, but on top of that, let's use another version of Wolverine. And so we have a future Wolverine here right now trying to kill off Moira McTaggart because apparently she is responsible for a dark future to come down the road for the mutant race. But here are the final two chapters of both series to wrap up our coverage over X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. And so when it comes to X Lives of Wolverine number 5, we actually pick up where the last chapter left off at. And remember, at the end of the last chapter, Omega Red was actually able to take over Wolverine's body. Because at first, you had Omega Red just going back in time and possessing different people as a way to use their bodies to kill off Charles Xavier. But now you have Omega Red say, no, I'm able to actually take over Wolverine's body in the present day and use Wolverine as a way to stab Charles Xavier to hopefully kill him off. Now, you also have to remember that Omega Red is actually working for Mikkel. Mikkel is the evil brother to Colossus. And when it comes to Mikkel, he hates the idea that there is a mutant nation out there in Marvel Comics. He feels like the mutant nation should be wiped away because he feels like mutants should technically work for their home country, like he does works for Russia. And so when it comes to COPPA, he's trying to get rid of it. And now with that being said, though, is Charles Xavier and Jean Grey trying to bring back Wolverine because they realize that if they don't, this could lead to the end of the mutant race technically, because Wolverine could just go ahead and kill everybody on the island. But then we have to jump over to the year 1900. Now, the reason why, because we have to remember, when it came to X Lives of Wolverine, it was all about the idea of present-day Wolverine going back in time to relive different moments of his past life to fight against Omega Red in the past, who was trying to kill off Charles Xavier. And so he had to possess past versions of himself to fight against Omega Red, who was also possessing other things in the past to kill off Charles in some kind of way. And so in the year 1900, it was teenage Wolverine, but he was actually near Captain Xavier. Now, the Captain was actually the grandfather to Charles Xavier, but Omega Red realized if you kill off his grandfather, then you won't have Charles Xavier in the present day. And so Wolverine had to go back to the year 1900 to protect Captain Xavier so that he will not be killed off, so that we'll have Charles in the present day. Now, once Wolverine was able to actually protect Captain Xavier, he stuck around for a couple more, let's say weeks, possibly months. But because he stuck around long enough to make sure that nothing else was going to happen to Captain Xavier, when he tried to leave, the Captain did not want Wolverine to leave because he saw Wolverine as a great man, a great fighter, a great warrior. But of course, Wolverine felt like as an animal, he should be in the forest. But on top of that, he wanted to be left alone. Now, with all that being said, you then had Captain give Wolverine a watch. Now, the reason why he gave this watch over to Wolverine is because the watch is supposed to be kind of like a compass as well, but to remind Wolverine that no matter what happens to you, if you get lost out there or you lose yourself as a man, just remember who you are. Remember that you are a great man and you actually have some kind of life worth living. And so it was a way for Wolverine to always come back to his original self, the original version of himself. Not an animal, not no killer, not no monster, but a great human being or a great man, mutant. And so back in the present day, it worked because Wolverine was able to kick Omega Red out of his body. He was able to regain control of his body so that Omega Red couldn't use his body to kill off Charles and possibly kill off Jean Grey. Either way, though, you do have Wolverine tell us that it's great that Omega Red actually took over his mind. And the reason why, because while Omega Red was in Wolverine's mind, Wolverine was actually in Omega Red's mind, meaning that he knows where Omega Red and Mikhail are actually hiding out at. And so now it's Wolverine telling Charles Xavier and Jean Grey, hey, let's go. I know where they're hiding. And if we can find them, we can actually stop them for good. Mikhail has been a problem for a very long time, and it's time for us to finally kill him off, but to also kill off Omega Red as well. And so we do jump over to Russia. And when we actually jump over to Russia, we pick up with Omega Red realizing that he failed his mission. They were trying to kill off Charles Xavier, and him and Mikhail actually failed. Now, when it comes to Mikhail, he looks at Omega Red not as a person, not as a mutant, but just a tool, a weapon, but a failed tool, a failed weapon. And so right now, it's Mikhail saying, I hoped that you could actually help me reach my goal. I hoped that you could help me reach Russia's goal, to bring all those mutants that had left Russia and bring them back here to serve their country. But on top of that, get rid of that nation completely. And so this is really Mikhail right now telling Omega Red that their alliance, their deal is over because Omega Red technically failed. Now Omega Red is confused because he feels like, why in the world should we end things? We still have a chance to win. But it's Mikhail saying, because you're in his mind, Wolverine's mind, he was also in your mind as well. He now knows where this location is at, and I cannot stay here because I still got plans to come down the road, which means that I have to sacrifice you to get away later, and you have Mikhail just technically teleport away, leaving Omega Red behind by himself. And so, of course, it does lead into a final battle between Wolverine and Omega Red, because you have Wolverine being able to teleport over there thanks to a mutant known as Gateway. But once Wolverine arrives there, it's a one-on-one battle between him and Omega Red. And to me, honestly, this was a great fight, a great battle, because it kind of brings back those old classic 1990s battles between Omega Red and Wolverine when Omega Red first popped up in Marvel Comics. Either way, it's kind of like a callback to those days right there. But this fight is just bloody. It's Wolverine saying, you messed up. You truly did messed up. And now I'm here to make sure you cannot mess up again down the road. Because you wanted to make me a monster. You wanted me to be a killer. And look what you did. You brought the killer out of me. And I'm going to make sure I actually do kill you. And so their battle does go on for a few pages. It goes back and forth, back and forth. It's bloody like no other. But at the end of the day, you have Wolverine being able to actually kill off Omega Red by literally cutting him in half and saying, bam, mission done. You're dead. I win. Later, I'm out. See you next time. Maybe not. Now, after his battle with Omega Red, you do have Wolverine go back to the island. thinking that he can finally rest, that everything is going to be a-okay now, except when he does get back to the island and he does hand over the Cerebro sword to Sage. And remember, Cerebro sword is technically a sword that holds all information about different mutants across the world. It's just another piece of Cerebro. Either way, once he does hand over the sword to Sage, well, that is the moment she tells him, oh, by the way, so crazy thing happened. There is another version of you right now about to kill off all mutants and humans on Earth because he's technically infected with the Phalanx. And the Phalanx inside of him wants to, do some bad harm to our island. So if I was you right now, I need you to go kill off your future self right now. And so this leads us into X Deaths of Wolverine. And so getting into X Deaths of Wolverine, we actually do pick up with Moira Taggart. Now, at first, it's Charles Xavier, and this is a callback to what we saw in House of X and Power of X, where you have Moira Taggart meeting Charles Xavier for the first time. Because when she met him or saw him on TV, she learned what she was, that she was a mutant. Because remember, when it comes to Moira Taggart, she had the ability to reincarnate. So once she died, she was able to relive her entire life all over again and keep her memories. But on top of that, she was constantly changing the timeline for Marvel Comics. And so she lived 10 different lives. Except with her 10th life, she technically lost her mutant ability. She's now just a regular human being. Now, on top of that as well, something else about Moira Taggart, she looked at the mutant race as a disease. She wanted to technically make a cure to wipe out the mutant race. But of course, in her 10th life, the current life, she was unable to reach that goal. And so she was able to make a nation along with Charles and Magneto, but at the same time, she was still trying to find a cure for the mutant gene. Either way, at the end of our last video, with her trying to reach that ultimate goal, she was stabbed by Wolverine, the future Wolverine, because apparently she's the reason why mutants lose again in the future. Because originally, this timeline is supposed to be a secure timeline for the mutant race, where they actually win. And so Wolverine killed her off to make sure that no dark future actually happens. The future Wolverine did. But really, we can't even worry about her anymore, because we have to worry about the future Wolverine who was technically infected by a Phalanx. Now remember, Phalanx are this techno-organic species out there in Marvel Universe, and they go around trying to take over different planets across the universe. And so with this being a future version of the Phalanx coming along with the Wolverine in the future, well, now it's here, and now it wants to go ahead and take over the Earth by taking over Earth's technology, starting with COPPA's technology. And so right now you have the Wolverine family trying to stop this infected Wolverine from the future from being able to infect all COPPA's technology and then spread to other technology across the world. And so then we pick up with Sage and Beast. Now when we do, this is where you have Sage realize what the infected future Wolverine is trying to do. But on top of that though, she realized how she can actually stop this infected Wolverine from the future by using the Cerebro sword. Because if this Wolverine was infected by a Phalanx, which is technically, techno-organic, then of course she should be able to actually hack into this virus or this version of the Phalanx from the future and to hopefully shut it down to protect the island from this infected Wolverine. And so she grabs Cerebro sword as a way to upload her virus into the Phalanx. And so getting back to the infected Wolverine from the future, he's right now trying to reach the main system of Cerebro to technically infect it with the Phalanx. Now, of course, you do have the Wolverine family trying their best to actually stop this infected Wolverine from the future. But because this is still Wolverine from the future, he is technically a better fighter than they are. But on top of that, they're still kind of worry about this future Wolverine, because when they look at him, of course, it's just Logan from the future. And so they care for him just like the present day Wolverine. And so right now, they're technically holding back, which of course, they should not be doing that at all. Either way, you do have the future Wolverine being able to actually take out each member of the Wolverine family. So Daken or Daken taken out. Scout or Honey Badger also taken out. X-23 or Wolverine also taken out. All 3 members of the Wolverine family is taken out. And it seems like nothing else is really going to stand in his way until the original Wolverine appears. And when he does appear, we get the Wolverine versus Wolverine battle. Future versus present Wolverines. Who's going to win? And so it does turn into a bloody fight. But of course, this is our Wolverine realizing what he has to do to protect the island. What he has to do, protect his people. What he has to do to protect the ones he loves. His family, his son, his daughters. He's trying his best to do whatever he can. And so it does turn into one heck of a battle. But getting back over to Sage, we do see her that she was actually able to upload some kind of virus that should be able to actually shut down the Phalanx. And this right here could be very important for the future of mutants down the road. Because remember, this is supposed to be technically a secure timeline where mutants do not lose to machines or humans, that they actually win. And so maybe this is just another thing that is actually used to make sure mutants win down the road. Either way, this sword is going to be used to shut down the future version of Wolverine. And so then we get into the final battle between Wolverine versus Wolverine, or part 2 of the final battle, where you do have the 2 characters fight against one another, and they do go back and forth for a while, because you're technically talking about the idea of 2 Wolverines fighting against one another. Now, our present day Wolverine may have the advantage here only because he's not infected by a Phalanx that's not right now holding him back. Because when it comes to future Wolverine, he's infected, but at the same time, he's trying to fight control for his body against the Phalanx. And so it could be a reason why present day Wolverine is actually having an advantage here right now in fighting against future Wolverine. Either way, that is the moment where you do have Sage come in and she hands Wolverine the sword to use. The cerebral sword that's right now holding her own version of the virus that can shut down the Phalanx. And so she does stab future Wolverine with the sword, which of course kills him off because he was technically already turned into a human in the last chapter, but also shuts down the Phalanx. And so the day is saved, and possibly the future as well. And so then we pick up with Wolverine and the Wolverine family, also with Charles Xavier and Jean Grey, right now celebrating. And the reason why, because they were able to actually accomplish 2 different things at once. They were able to protect the past, but also being able to protect the future as well. As a matter of fact, the present day. And so it's a great day to celebrate. Now, of course, Wolverine's kind of like, I'm okay. Y'all can celebrate. I don't want to. And the reason why, because this man had lived for so long that even though he just hit a great moment in his life, a successful moment in his life, in his eyes, once you finish one crazy thing, something even crazier is about to come down the road. And of course, we do get one panel that does focus on Sabretooth, meaning that he could possibly come back down the road. Now, you do have Sage and Beast talk to one another, and for me, this feels like it's really Benjamin Percy, the writer of this storyline, saying that when it comes to Wolverine, Wolverine is the best X-Men. And when he says that, it's more of kind of, he's the most popular X-Men. And sometimes Wolverine is the best solution to ending all kind of problems the X-Men are facing. Because most times the X-Men want to try different things without actually fighting to stop their problems. But when it comes to Wolverine, the best way to actually stop your problems is to stab it. And so it's Beast saying, you know what? Maybe he is the best at what he does. But on top of that is Benjamin Percy saying, Wolverine is the best character on the X-Men. Just telling you X-Men fans out there, he is. But then we jump over to a random graveyard. And matter of fact, we see that Moira Taggart is not dead. That matter of fact, she'll be back again down the road, because that is the moment we do see a hand pop out of the ground. And of course, it's a way for us to realize that she did not die. That technically, Moira Taggart is right now an Omega Sentinel, meaning that she's a hybrid, half machine, half human, a cyborg. Either way, she now has the ability to possibly try to kill off the mutant race. And again, this seems to be a way for Marvel to say, guess what's coming down the road? Something big involving her once again. Another big storyline down the road. But with that being said though, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.